What is good, y'all? Welcome back to Chris and Roth Productions. I'm Chris. I hope you've had a good week. And there's been a lot of discussion online about the state of the DC studios, DCU, going forward after the box office failure of Blue Beetle. So we did do our review for Blue Beetle if you want to check that out. Me personally, I absolutely love the film, and it's my favorite DC movie of the year so far. We have one more DCEU movie, I guess technically, which is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which comes out in December. So after this movie comes out, we are finally going to be fully, engulfed in the DCU timeline. We're going to be moving on from the DCEU. We're going to be having new actors. We're going to be introducing characters that have never been on the big screen. And we're just going to be part of this universe that I think is going to thrive. There are questions that I do have, and hopefully I can find answers to them today, just discussing about it on my own. And let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get into this. This is my Chris and Rock Productions DCU breakdown. So obviously we have James Gunn, Peter Safran, who are the co-heads of DC Studios. They took over back in October of 2022. So we're approaching a full year of them being the heads of the studio. And there has been a lot of dialogue online on whether or not this is going to succeed. I believe it is going to succeed exponentially. I think it's going to surpass the DCEU, and I think it very well end up passing the MCU if they play their cards right. If you've seen our videos, you know how much I love James Gunn as a writer and director. He's my favorite working writer and director right now. And Peter Safran, I know he is a producer that gets the job done. He's produced the most successful DCEU movie, which was Aquaman in 2018, which made over $1 billion. He's produced Shazam, the Suicide Squad. He did the Conjuring universe, I believe. So yeah, he just knows exactly how to help make money on these movies. So with these two together, I think they made a great layout for what's to come in the future. And let's go ahead and go through each project and my thoughts throughout and what I hope to see and what I hope not to see. So the biggest one I think that everyone's anticipating, including myself, is Superman Legacy. So we already have our Superman casted as David Corenswet. We have our Lois Lane, who is going to be played by Rachel Brosnahan. And then we have a plethora of characters who are going to be joining Superman, such as Metamorpho, Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. We have casting as them, such as Nathan Fillion. And then we have Elizabeth Merced, who's going to be Hawkgirl. And then, the rest of the cast is going to be casted throughout. So, my thoughts about Superman Legacy and what I hope to see. So first and foremost, what I already know and what James Gunn's already said is that superheroes are already going to be established going into this film, Superman Legacy. So it's not necessarily going to be an origin film of DC. It's not going to be an origin film for Superman himself. He's already going to be Superman for a few years, and we're just going to see his life and how he handles the responsibility of being the world's greatest hero. We all know that Clark Kent, he lives a double life. Obviously, he is Clark Kent, works at the Daily Planet with Lois Lane, and he just tries to balance his work life with his superhero life, where he's part of the Justice League. And what I think they're going to end up doing in this movie, and what I hope they do, is they show how he struggles with that to a degree. What I think he's gonna end up probably doing is butting heads with like a Guy Gardner, or he's gonna have questions on tactics by Mr. Terrific or somewhat. He's gonna be conflicted on how he wants to continue to be a hero. He's obviously gonna be on this is gonna be sort of like the Justice League that we're gonna see established already, and I think David Corenswet is the right man for this job. And I'm really anxious to see how he portrays Superman, especially Clark Kent. Um, what I think this movie is going to end up doing for the DCU is going to launch it into another stratosphere right off the bat. So this isn't the first official DCU movie that's going to be coming out. We'll get into the one that's coming out before this. But this is the actual like launch of live action big screen DCU project. James Gunn's writing and directing, so he has an immense amount of pressure that's going to be on his shoulders. But if there's anyone that can knock it out of the park, it's going to be him. He writes characters who are, I want to say, like damaged from within, such as like the Guardians, the Suicide Squad characters like Peacemaker and Bloodsport. And even though Superman is portrayed as like this perfect person, he obviously has conflicts from within on how does he be a hero, how does he be the role model that everyone wants him to be. And I think we're going to see that and his progression as Superman throughout this film. And this movie is just going to just be phenomenal. And I can't wait to see his interactions with characters that we've never seen live action on the big screen. It's going to be really interesting. Let's go ahead and go into the next project that I wanted to talk about, and that is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is the first official DCU project that comes out next year in 2024. The voice actors have already finished doing their lines. And right now they're just waiting for a release date. That's pretty much all that we're waiting on. They're doing final touches, probably music and production and editing and things like that. But this show's done, and that is exciting. I personally don't know much about Creature Commandos. I do know some of these characters, such as Frankenstein, such as Rick Flag Sr., and there is a handful of these that I don't know. Weasel's the only one that we've seen live action. So the Weasel from the Suicide Squad is going to be his character in this show. So this automatically kind of makes it like canon to what we've already seen before. And that's what a lot of people kind of have issues on what's going to continue to be DCU, what's not going to continue to be DCU. The way I see it, I think anything Suicide Squad related is going to continue to be canon, and everything else is going to get rebooted because we're getting an Amanda Waller show, a Peacemaker season 2, and some other stuff. For Creature Commandos, it's going to be animated, of course, and we're going to see these characters potentially on the big screen. I know Frank Grillo is playing Rick Flag Sr., so imagine an interaction with Rick Flag Sr. and Peacemaker, because I believe this Creature Commandos take place in like our present day, or at least the present day in the DCU. So it's not going to be a period piece, which usually it takes place, I believe, during like Vietnam, World War II, in between those years. So we're gonna see these characters and how they implement themselves in the DCU. I think this story, from what the cast have said, like David Harbour, who plays Frankenstein, he said that he believes this is James Gunn's best writing, and that's super exciting. So this is my most anticipated show of next year. This one and the Godzilla Monarch show that comes out next year. That was probably my most anticipated live action show. This is hands down just my most anticipated across the board. Um, so Creature Commandos, I think it's going to just be a nice taste of what the DCU is going to be, and I just can't wait to see it. Next, let's get into Amanda Waller. So Waller, excuse me, like I mentioned, is going to be a continuation of the Viola Davis character that we've seen in the Suicide Squad as well as Peacemaker. I believe Johnny Economos and Amelia Harcourt are going to be coming back to reprise their roles. So that's why I think, anything Suicide Squad related is going to continue into the DCU. Amanda Waller, if you've seen Peacemaker season 1, spoilers, it leaves off with her daughter, Amanda Waller's daughter, exposing her, Adebayo Waller, exposing Amanda Waller to the world on her operations for Task Force X, the Suicide Squad. And now she has to deal with those repercussions on her program being exposed to the world. I don't think Harcourt is going to work with Amanda Waller. Maybe so. Johnny Economos is already back at Belle Reve working over there again. So we are going to see exactly the repercussions of season 1 of Peacemaker on Amanda Waller. Viola Davis, she's just a wonderful, wonderful actress. She just brings it every time. She for sure was one of the standouts in the DCEU. So it's really, really awesome to see her character continue. This is probably going to come out. I don't know if it's coming out before or after Superman, because I know Superman starts shooting in January of 2024 as of right now. We'll see if that sticks because of the strikes going on. But Amanda Waller is going to for sure be one of the earlier projects. It's going to for sure be the first live action show that's going to end up airing on Max. So Amanda Waller is going to be a really interesting program to watch, and how all that stuff plays out from Peacemaker season one. Next, let's get into Lanterns. So, Lanterns, when this was announced, I immediately just got giddy. We did do our reaction to the DCU announcement back in January when James Gunn dropped that video. So, if you want to check that out, I'll drop that link in the description. But we're going to be following Hal Jordan and John Stewart, and Green Lanterns are basically space cops. So what I think is going to end up taking place is, so they describe this show as like True Detective meets like Green Lantern's DC. I've seen True Detective. If you haven't seen it, True Detective is just this grungy, just mental roller coaster of a cop show that stars Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. At least season one. I haven't seen the other seasons. I need to get on those. And you have the Green Lantern Corps, who are the space cops of the DC universe. They go from world to world working on cases, murder cases, sort of like world-ending crises that they have to try to stop or prevent. And we're gonna most likely see Guy Gardner, who's gonna be in Superman Legacy. He's gonna be played by Nathan Fillion. We'll most likely see Guy Gardner in the Lantern show, probably Kilowog, and some other Green Lantern. As in the Corps, I think they're gonna be established as like a world building sort of like army that's in outer space. So whenever there's probably going to be a giant conflict on Earth, obviously we're going to see Hal Jordan. Probably we will see John Stewart. We'll probably see Hal Jordan. I don't know who's going to be the main Green Lantern in the Justice League. I don't know if they'll have both of them at the same time. But for sure, I think John Stewart's going to be our main DCU Green Lantern, and I love that because John Stewart is the one that I grew up with from the animated show in the 2000s. So I think this show is just going to just be True Detective, and we're gonna see just these two guys be buddy cops in a way. What I really, really want to see is Sinestro start off the show as a Green Lantern, and then throughout the show, he shows his true intentions on how he treats others and how he handles cases, and then we see him go to the Yellow Corpse. That's something that I really want to see happen, and I think it's going to end up happening. All right, so next I want to get into a show of, excuse me, not a show, Authority, which is going to be a live action movie. Authority, I don't honestly, of everything I'm going to talk about right now, this is the one that I know the least, honestly. But I know from the comic run that they had with Superman that Superman does some investigative work on them, and he tries to sort of stop them in a way. The Authority, the way that it was described, is they're going to be like the boys of the DC universe. If you haven't seen The Boys, I think, is probably the best superhero show to air in the last 5 years, at least live action wise. It is bloody. It is just a emotional roller coaster when you get attached to certain characters and they get killed off. And I think the Authority is going to probably do the same. Like I mentioned, I don't know much about them, but I do know from what I've read online that two of the characters are gay. So I think that's going to be really dope to have, the two leads of this film be, gay actors. I think they're going to cast them well. And I just can't wait to see this movie because eventually they're going to end up facing off against Superman. Rumors say that Authority is going to be introduced in Superman Legacy. I think their film is going to have probably Superman be the ones that they're facing off against in a way. Um, I don't know if they'll introduce the Authority. If they do, I'm thinking probably a post-credit scene just to launch, introduce themselves live action in a way. Um, well, I think the casting, they're going to cast big names because these are not as well-known characters. They're going to cast big names, at least two or three, and we're just going to see we're going to see this team kind of just be the boys of the DCU and how they do good, but their actions and the way that their methods that they choose doesn't necessarily reflect well with Superman. So I think just keep an eye out on how them and Superman is going to interact with each other. Next, I want to get into Batman the Brave and the Bold. So, man, this is going to be, this is, I'm going to talk about this one for a good amount. So, we know Batman Brave and the Bold is going to be directed by Andy Muschietti. Andy Muschietti did The Flash. The Flash absolutely bombed, but I don't think it was a reflection of his directing. I think it was just more so a reflection of Ezra Miller, um, and I think just people not necessarily really caring for the DCEU anymore. So there was a lot of factors, but Andy Muschietti's directing, his especially his Batman directing. Whenever he directed Michael Keaton and spoilers George Clooney at the end, and Ben Affleck, I think he is able to direct Batman action scenes really well. I think he's able to capture the sort of like the Brave and the Bold element of Batman. Ralph and I, we've been watching the Brave and the Bold animated series a bunch recently. We're probably like maybe like 15 episodes in. And every episode, Batman teams up with a different character. You know, he's teamed up with Guy Gardner. He's teamed up with Aquaman. He's teamed up with Blue Beetle a bunch in that show. So if this title is The Brave and the Bold, I'm assuming he's going to have interactions with other heroes. And obviously, we're going to have his son, Damian Wayne, who's going to be our main Robin. So if he's our main Robin, then that means Batman's already had Dick Grayson. He's had Jason Todd. Um, so I am excited to see if Nightwing is going to pop up in this. Maybe Red Hood. I don't know. But I think Andy Muschietti, despite the Flash bombing, which I think was out of his hands because the directing of that movie was really dope. It really was. The way he directed Ben Affleck at the beginning of the film with that action sequence, I thought was amazing. And then Michael Keaton, he's a phenomenal actor, but they could have easily wrote his character as just I'm Batman, and then that's pretty much it. And he did do that to an extent, but I think Andy Muschietti was able to pull something out of that character that we probably wouldn't have seen from other directors. Andy Muschietti, he's doing it, he did it, he's doing it uh, show for Max. Um, so I think The Brave and the Bold's in good hands. A lot of people are going to push back on it because of how much the Flash bombed, but I really honestly don't have any worries. Personally, I think the directing is going to be amazing. They still have to find I don't know who the writer is going to be, and obviously they have to cast Batman. My personal choice would be Jensen Ackles, who plays Soldier Boy on The Boys, and obviously he's in Supernatural. So he is older, I believe he's like 45. So by the time they do Brave and the Bold, he can be 47, 48, depending on if they cast him. I know they want Batman to be a similar age as Superman. David Corenswet, I believe, is 33, if I'm not mistaken, 32. So I don't know if they'll cast Jensen Ackles because of his age. But Jensen Ackles has experience playing Batman. He's done Batman's voice for the DC animated movies. I think he just has the look and the swagger to play Bruce Wayne. So if they do have him play Batman, I would love that. A lot of people have said John Krasinski, obviously who plays Jim in The Office, and most recently Reed Richards for the what was that movie, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Um, but I don't know. I don't see John Krasinski as Batman personally. I don't. Um, but who knows? Maybe if he does get casted, he'll knock it out of the ballpark. But we shall see. But Batman Brave and the Bold, it's going to be on a lot of people's list of like top two, top three most anticipated DCU projects. Probably even number one for a lot of people. For me, it's number two after Superman Legacy. I just can't wait to see that film. And then Brave and the Bold, I think it's going to be phenomenal. Let's go ahead and go to the next project, and that is Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is going to be sort of a prequel to Diana. So we're not going to see Wonder Woman at all. Maybe not, probably not at all. Maybe they'll show glimpses of her. But we're not getting Wonder Woman in this show. It's sort of going to be, as described, the Game of Thrones of DC. I've never seen Game of Thrones, but I do know the elements of it. Like I know just the way it is. It's cutthroat. Your favorite character dies almost every week, and it's just a lot of just gravitas acting throughout. Paradise Lost is going to focus on the mascara and the origins. I believe the origins of the Amazons. We're going to see sort of like the cutthroat take of Game of Thrones. Now, this is the big question that a lot of people have, including myself. Is Gal Gadot going to be coming back as Wonder Woman? There's been zero confirmation from James Gunn. There has been meetings with Gal Gadot and James Gunn and Peter Safran, which has been confirmed online by both James Gunn and Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot has said recently that she is coming back as Wonder Woman. So my thing is that James Gunn hasn't come out and confirmed that himself. He confirms and denies a lot of things online. So why hasn't he confirmed the Gal Gadot situation? Maybe they're still searching for our Wonder Woman. Maybe it is going to be Gal Gadot. Personally, I would just move on from her because you're not bringing back the original, Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill. So why would you bring back Gal Gadot? I really, really enjoy her as Wonder Woman, but personally, I wouldn't bring her back. As far as Paradise Lost, you don't have to worry about that right now because Wonder Woman is not going to be in this show. Um, but this show, I don't know how my hype is going to be. I just want to see some set photos just to see how grand it's going to be. Um, but I think they're going to tackle the issues of like humanity, mankind interfering with the island of the Mascara Island, and they're going to be sort of stuck in time. So I'm curious on whether the time frame is going to be. Well, I think yeah, it's a prequel, so it's going to take place years ago. Because if they plan on doing this present day, then that means Wonder Woman would be around. So yeah, I think it's going to for sure take place many years before. And yeah, we'll see what's up with this show. I'm excited because I love anything Wonder Woman, but I just want to see some images first to see exactly how it's gonna look. All right, next we have Booster Gold. So if you've seen Blue Beetle recently, you know that they already have their Blue Beetle in Jolaman and Joya. Booster Gold interacts with Ted Cord, who is the older Blue Beetle, older than the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle. So I'm curious if they're just gonna have Booster Gold have his Blue Beetle be the Jaime Reyes one. We'll see what happens with that. But Booster Gold himself, I've been reading actually some of his comics. Um, I've read a recent Tom King run where Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are in it. I forget the name. I literally read it the other day, but the name is slipping. Apologies. Um, but Booster Gold, he's just a goofball. If you don't know his story, basically he's a guy from the future that gets a hold of some tech. He wants to be a superhero, so he time travels back to our time using the tech that he has to try to play as a superhero, but he really isn't. Well, he is. He ends up becoming one, but that's his origin. So I think it's gonna be a really fun, interesting take on the character that they're gonna do in the DCU. Um, I personally, a lot of people want Chris Pratt. I would love to see Chris Pratt. Um, I don't know if James Gunn would want Chris Pratt to be Booster Gold because James Gunn's already said that Chris Pratt's going to be in the DCU. He's basically said that. He said that there's a reason why he hasn't casted Chris Pratt yet because he has a role for him in the future. Um, I don't know if that's going to be Booster Gold. It would be very similar to like a Star Lord type, which we all know he can already do. He's been doing it for the last 9 years, and he's going to continue to be Star Lord. So I don't know if he would want Chris Pratt to be Star Lord and Booster Gold, who have a similar character type, and sort of have similar powers. The boost boots, whatever they're called, like that can make them fly, blasters and things like that. Um, but I think this take on the DC is going to be really hilarious. It's going to be a show, so I'm just excited to see who they cast. I really am excited. A lot of people want. Oh my god, what's his name? The guy from Top Gun Maverick. Um, I forget his name. Not Payback. Was it Payback? Oh, Hangman. Hangman. I forget the guy's name, the actor. You when I see his face, I know exactly who he is. But people want him to play Booster Gold. I think he's going to end up being in the DCU. It very well may be Booster Gold. I think he just looks the part. Um, he has comedic chops. He's done comedy movies or like things like that in the past. So I think he would be a perfect cast. Him or Chris Pratt, we'll see. But yeah, Booster Gold. I just cannot wait to see his interactions with Blue Beetle and how they bounce off of each other. That stuff's gonna be hilarious. Now the whole Jaime Reyes, like I said, I don't know if it's gonna be Jaime Reyes or Ted Cord. Speaking of Ted Cord, he was teased at the end of Blue Beetle. Spoilers. But yeah, we'll see what happens with this character, Booster Gold. Okay. Next is going to be Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So if you see behind me, I have her graphic novel behind me, and it's just a good read. I don't want to get into that story because I don't want to. If this is a true adaptation of that graphic novel, I obviously don't want to spoil anything. But just the character of Supergirl herself, we all know that she's Kal-El's cousin, and um, she is sent from Krypton with baby Clark Kal-El to protect him. Things go south. She lands. She sees her whole planet blow up in Krypton, and she's sort of on her own throughout. Um, so she is heroic. She has heroic tendencies, but she's a little more rougher around the edges because of how she was raised, because of the things that she saw. Clark landed on Earth, and he was able to be raised by the Kents and have a beautiful upbringing. Um, Kara, not so much. She had a rough upbringing. She saw a lot of tough things for her, so she is more edgy. I don't know who they'll cast as Supergirl. I don't know if they're gonna continue with Sasha Calle. I enjoyed her take on Supergirl, but it sucks to say this, but if you're gonna be moving on from the DCEU, I think you move on from her character. But at the same time, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to bring her back, because it's already known in the Flash that it's multiverse. She's from a different planet. I mean, a different multiverse with the Ezra Miller, Barry Allen. So who knows? This is gonna be a coin flip. It can be Sasha Calle. It cannot. Really, there's no way to be right or wrong. Yes, you can be right or wrong, but there's no way to predict it right now. I don't. They haven't said anything about. Yeah, we haven't found our Supergirl. Sasha Kaya, she said that she's had meetings with the Warner Brother execs already about continuing, but this was, I believe, before the Flash came out. So I don't know. I'm sure the execs are taking a look at how the Flash underperformed, and maybe that goes into the effect of Supergirl and her casting. But overall, I really enjoyed her take on the character, and then for Supergirl, Woman of the Tomorrow, I think it's going to be sort of like, I believe, sort of like this punk rock, sort of a more edgy, cutthroat type of character. And I think it's going to reflect well on the big screen. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards this character because she is a damaged character from within. So I just can't wait to see this movie. Supergirl One of Tomorrow. It's probably a lot of people's most anticipated film, and it's one of mine for real, for sure. So yeah, I can't wait for this one. Next, let's get into Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is going to be directed by James Mangold. James Mangold recently did Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny did not do well in the box office, but if you look at James Mangold's track record, it's off the charts. He did probably the greatest Marvel movie ever made, Logan, and he did my favorite film from 2019, or one of my favorite films from 2019, Ford versus Ferrari. And he's done a bunch of other projects, but those are the two that I really like to talk about because he just knocked out of the ballpark. He's already doing a Star Wars movie that Lucasfilm is bringing him on, Disney's bringing him on to do. So he knows how to cook, and people want to see what he's doing. People in the industry love him as a director, and I love him as a director. Swamp Thing, I think from what James Gunn said, is going to sort of like be an adaptation of the Alan Moore run that he did back in the 80s. So obviously Swamp Thing is just this dark, sort of brooding character. And I think this easily could be sort of like a gateway to Justice League Dark. You see behind me, I have Etrigan and John Constantine, the McFarlane figures. So if they do Justice League Dark, I would absolutely love that. I've said in multiple videos in the past talking about the DCU that probably my number one or number two projects that I want to see announced in the next few years is Justice League Dark, and Swamp Thing obviously ties into them because he's part of that team. You can bring in Boston, Deadman. You can bring in Zatanna. You can bring in Detective Monkey and all them. Um, so I think Swamp Thing for sure, for sure, for sure. You keep this at a low budget. There's no reason for it to be a 150 million film to make. Keep a low budget. You have James Mangold, make gold. You have him at the helm. You give him creative freedom. Obviously, you give him notes on what he should set up, or even if he doesn't have to set up anything. I think the Swamp Thing is this one came out of left field. If you watch our reaction that we did back in January when I first read Swamp Thing, I was like, "What the heck, a Swamp Thing movie?" I was not expecting that, but it makes sense. If you want to set up different assets of the DCU, such as the Justice League Superman Batman part, you want to set up the Green Lantern Corps out in space, why not set up Justice League Dark with Swamp Thing and have him sort of be the first introduction to our live action take on that Swamp Thing? If they adapt the Alan Moore run, a lot of people are going to love that story. And that's the last official, I guess, canon DCU project. But there's one more thing I wanted to get into, and that is DC Elseworld. So DC Elseworld obviously is not canon to the DCU. We have the Matt Reeves, the Batman world with Robert Pattinson, and then we have the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. Joaquin Phoenix Joker, the sequel. I still don't even know how to pronounce it. Um, that comes out next year. That is the only DC movie that's going to be released in theaters, and I honestly don't think there'll be any delays. They finished filming months ago. There's no reason to have it delayed. Obviously, there's strikes going on, but you could still work on the film. I'm sure Todd Phillips is still doing editing and post production and things like that. Um, and then we have the Batman Part Two coming out in 2025. So it's gonna be coming out the same year. We're gonna have a Batman movie and we're gonna have a Superman movie come out in the same year. Think about that. The same year. That is badass. Um, but for the Batman in that world, I think they're actively trying to cast a Harvey Dent. There's been rumors about Clayface being the main villain. A lot of people want Mr. Freeze to be the main villain. I think to have a Matt Reeves take on Mr. Freeze would be badass. And the Robert Pattinson absolutely killed it. He's easily in my top three favorite Batmans ever. Um, and I just can't wait to see that film. Um, it's just going to be amazing. And then for the Joker was a phenomenon in 2019. Made over $1 billion with a budget of like I think less than $65 million. That is incredible. And a lot of people are pushing back on the sequel. I personally, at first, I was like, man, you don't need to make a sequel. But then seeing Todd Phillips describe it and what they're going to be doing, and if Joaquin Phoenix read the script and he signed on, that is a dead giveaway for that. This script is probably amazing. And then obviously you have Lady Gaga who's going to be playing Harley Quinn. Joaquin Phoenix, he's known for being picky and for not wanting to do sequels at all. He's like super anti sequel. He's super anti big CGI stuff. So he knows how to pick his projects. And if he signed on for the Joker too, then Joaquin Phoenix himself has a lot of confidence in that film. And then Matt Reeves, he knows how to cook. Robert Pattinson is a wonderful Batman. So the DC Elseworld stuff, I just wanted to touch on that real quick because it's even though it's not canon to the DCU, it still needs to be talked about. Who knows? Maybe Robert Pattinson might end up being the DCU Batman. I wouldn't want that personally. I would rather just have two, even though it's going to be confusing for a lot of people having two Batmans at the same time. Screw it. Um, but yeah, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video and my take on the DCU and the future projects and everything going on. So drop down a comment below. What's your thoughts on the DCU on the slate? Are you confused? Do you have any questions? I want to read y'all's comments, so drop that down below. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. We do appreciate the support that we have been getting. We recently were on a live stream, Ralph and I, showing off our Funko Pop collection. So that was really dope. Our first time ever doing a live stream, first time ever doing like a collab with other YouTubers. So I would hope, hopefully, and I'm sure we'll do future collabs with other YouTubers, the same ones that we met recently. Maybe we'll probably do live streams in the future. I would love to do DC talk with people live, have people submit their questions and read them, and just have some great interactions with people. But as always, guys, I'm Chris. I will catch you next time. Peace.